Hello, welcome to Paleo Greenbird. I'm Greenbird, and I don't have my safety glasses. Hello guys, welcome to Paleo Greenbird. I am Greenbird, and today we're going to be taking this absolutely beautiful Flint Ridge preform and turning it into an arrow point. It's been really nice out. Yesterday was a beautiful day. I went out and played with my atlatl for a couple hours, and I realized that I need to make some arrow points so that I can make some arrows so that I can shoot my bow. So that's what we're going to do. You might remember, if you've seen the video, we made this a while back. Some preforms. This is one of them. And now we're going to clean it up, turn it into an arrow point. So it's a little bit on the thick side because it is just a preform. I'm going to probably keep it a little on the thick side because this is not meant to be one of those, super thin, super sexy show-off points that you post on your Facebook page that break the second you drop them. This is going to be functional. I want this to be able to be shot. I do stump shooting, so I would like to make something that will not break. So that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to start off by just grinding everything. So again, I'm going to start with just grinding everything. Get off anything that's weak. Anything that I can grind off, I don't want there. So I'll be a little aggressive with it, especially in the beginning. Looking for my thick spots while I'm grinding. Tells me what I need to do. So I'm also looking for irregularities, and you can see right there's a big one. I've got a piece of material off of there that has to come off, and I've got a good platform that will thin the tip on the other side as well. So I wasn't sure if I was going to need to do any percussion, so I didn't get my leg pad out, but I'm going to. I'm going to have to do a little bit of percussion. So I'm going to take my smallest billet that I have. Well, it's not my smallest, but it's my lightest. I do have a smaller billet. It's got more weight to it. Just snap a little bit off the hand, which is exactly how I got that bad boy right there. Just trying to get a nice thin flake, nothing huge, supporting it on all edges. There we go. Took that flake off. Ooh, gave myself a little bit of a nasty hinge, but that's okay. I can work with it. Now we'll take that other side. There we go. That actually helps. Look at how thin those flakes are. Little baby flakes. So fun to take, though. Alright. A little bit of a thick side over here. This is where we try and fine-tune your symmetry. Well, not just your symmetry, but your thickness. And it's not those big giant flakes that we love to take. Just need a little bit more grinding. There's that little flake. Terminated a little bit short. No, actually it feathered out pretty nice. It looked like it was a short termination, but so you can see it sort of set me up with another mini platform. I apologize if this is too far away for such a small piece of stone, but I'm trying to be able to make sure you can see the pressure flaking as well as everything else. If you'd like me to do something different with the camera, just let me know. I'll try it. So I'm kind of thinning this one edge out, one flake at a time. Well, many flakes. I'm just barely. I'm not hitting in really at all right now. I'm just hitting mostly down. There'll be enough natural inward pressure to pop a flake off. I mean, obviously you don't want to just smash the edge. There's a little bit of inward pressure, but not enough to where you need to think about it. Unless you have a nice thick flake. Like I do have a kind of a thick flake here, but still, I'd probably be just fine. Just trying to kind of hit a little bit in, almost like I'm trying to hit the pad of my finger. I'm supporting it. I'm not death gripping it. I'm just supporting it, letting it float a little bit. Move that finger back a little bit. That's too far ahead. Okay. There's a flake. Each flake leaves me another pattern. I mean another platform. I said pattern because I noticed how it's starting to create my flake pattern. Should backtrack a little bit on this one. Sometimes you'll find yourself flipping it upside down because it does sometimes create that zigzag effect. Oh, I gotta go back up to the top here. Sort of felt that one a little bit. Don't let your ends get thinner than your middle. So like this end's kind of thin. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of start to address this backside. And then I'll meet it up in the middle. Nine out of 10 times if I'm going to get cut, this is where it happens. I could probably just switch to pressure flaking at this point. You know how much I love percussion. Happy with that. Alright, don't get careless here. Pay attention. I'm going to save that for the pressure flaker. So look how much thinner we got this one side. And it's pretty sharp. As it is right now, it's sharp, but you know, we're going to grind it off, make it dull, and then sharpen it again. That's just the way the process works. But so this side's thinned out, but now we have to approach this side over here. And you can flip it back and forth. You don't have to do one side and then do the other side. That's just what this particular stone seemed to want to do, in my opinion. Let's start on this side. Microflakes, that's what we want. So cool, so fun taking those flakes, those little tiny flakes. If you want to see a good video on taking really tiny flakes, look at Trey McCord. He's on my list. He has a video. He makes these boppers that, man, you can take microscopic flakes. I've got one he sent me. I've used it a few times. I like it. Just using this one. Oh, got myself a little cut. You know you're napping when you start to bleed. Especially at this stage. That one's sticking right out of me. Blood freaks you out, don't nap. Because you might not get, you know, a bad cut. Hopefully you don't get bad cuts. Be smart about your napping. But you're bound to get cut here and there. This one looks worse than it is. It's just, you know, it's because it's so sharp. Go. Little awesome microblade. Set me up with another little platform. I guess I should have worn my slippers. That's right. I thought I was going to be doing mostly pressure, but this preform still has a little bit of percussion to go before it's ready. That's what I wanted. And I would suggest, it's just my opinion, another good one, really cleaning your pad off every time at this stage, because that's, you're going to stick yourself with whatever's left on the pad. And I'm not really super concerned if I'm getting like little tiny hinges or little tiny steps, because we're going to pressure flake and sharpen that blade anyway. So you can see how we've reduced this down, sharp on both sides, thick down here. So we're going to try and run some flakes going forward. I'm not trying to flute this or anything, but I definitely want to try and thin it out so I can haft it as easily as possible. And I'll do a video on when I haft this, most likely anyway. Even though we got that edge nice and sharp, I'm still going to grind it, because we're going to sharpen it even more. So I cut myself on it while I'm working. Plus you get off all that thin stuff. Sometimes you find a little surprise area like this that needs to be reduced a little bit. I'm going to drive some flakes off the base. Really good support. Not long flakes. These are going to be relatively short flakes. If you wanted to drive long flakes, that time is gone. Careful. I'm actually going to go back to freehand napping because I don't want to break this. I might need to get those with pressure. So let's grind it. Let's go right to pressure and see what happens. So I have a pressure pad here, real down and dirty. All it is basically a piece of cedar fencing that I trimmed up I glued some leather onto it, some leather scraps, give myself a nice groove. Doesn't have to be anything amazing. I mean, you can spend a ton of money on flint knapping equipment. I'd be happy to post a link on this video if that's what you'd like to do. I'm going to use this flaker. This is a friction fit pressure flaker that I made. It's got a copper nail in it. This isn't a twisted copper nail. I prefer the twisted ones, but this is the right size. And if you are curious about my friction fit pressure flakers, I do have a video on it. If I think of it, I'll post it in the description or somewhere up in the video. But I might not, I might forget. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of this. I'm going to support my hand that's holding the pad so that I can use my legs. I want to use my legs as much as possible, not my wrists. Got the flake that I want to take in the groove. This is kind of a wide groove. Hopefully it works out well for me. And I want to push down and in. Nice. It gets tougher when you get close to the edges. And this pressure flaker is a little bit, the copper is a little bit higher than what I really prefer, but I'll use it anyway. That's why I'm getting so much slippage. I'll grind some more. Take this one over here, I think, instead. There we go. That's always a good sound when you're pressure flanking. This is where you sort of zigzag, just like when you're trying to make a square rock, get some platforms. Same concept, really. Percussion and pressure, I mean, the tools are different, the technique is different, but the physics are the same. You're trying to pluck a flake off of your material. It's just, instead of hitting it, it's small enough to where you can actually just push it. There we go. Always clean your pad. That way you don't crush up against something and create problems. Alright, you can tell that looked like it took some force. It shouldn't be that difficult. An error of technique. I'm not a master at this, I'm just sharing my journey. I've seen people get really hurt pressure flaking. There we go. I'm going to zigzag this a little bit. Just try to thin this down. The most exciting, but it's part of the process. The thinner you get this, the easier it'll be to notch. Okay, this side's a little thicker. I gotta take care of that. You can see I have a bad habit of getting my hand away from my leg. Ideally, you want that hand on your leg so you can use your legs, not your arms. See how much better it's working for me? Alright. More on either side. This is a little bit on the thick side, but I want it to be able to withstand the abuse of shooting into trees and stumps and stuff like that. So, this is what we're left with for a preform. Sharpen those edges quite a bit. Still got some good center mass. Reduce a little bit on the back. Now we're going to grind it. So here's where once we're in that final stage, this is where we're really concerned about the symmetry of your point, because this is going to be the end result. Hopefully after this, all we're going to do is sharpen. I'll do a video on sharpening. I don't generally sharpen my points until I'm ready to haft them, because you want them to be so sharp that even just clinking around with other points and general wear and tear will degrade your points to the point where it's not really an ethically good hunting point. If you can't get your points razor sharp, you shouldn't hunt with them. Where I'm at, it's illegal to use primitive points anyway, so I can't technically hunt with them. Don't spend too much on one side, you'll end up with a lopsided point, or a knife. Come back to my leg. Every time I realize that I'm floating away from my leg, I'm trying to come back to it because I want to build good habits. I mean, I guess at the end of the day it doesn't matter as long as you get a point. But I like to practice as perfectly as I can. Alright, so got that weird quartz vein. I don't know if you remember from the other video, but it's going to be part of the point. Let that jump a little bit. Ooh, it's getting sharp. Just doing some really fine flaking here with the pressure flaker. I'm not taking a lot off. Just trying to get rid of that saw blade effect. Now it's important when you're supporting this, you don't want to be wrenching on it in the middle. You want to have support on either side. And then when you're doing the tip, it's a little bit more difficult because there is no other side. You just kind of support as best you can. Best way to think about it is if you have contact with that point, that is going to absorb some shock that would normally destroy your point, normally cause end shock. So I'm pretty happy with that. That's pretty symmetrical, wouldn't you say? Got on either side. Got a nice point to it. So, some people might thin this down a little bit more. Personally, I think that if we thin this down any more, it's going to shatter the first time we shoot it, so why don't we notch it? What kind of notching do we want to do on this? Let's do a corner notch. So I'm going to start by placing the point in the pad, and I'm going to try and come straight in from the corners on both sides. It's going to blow the side of that corner off a little bit. Don't worry about it; it's not a big deal. Get nice and comfortable. I'm not pushing in the middle, just supporting it. And I'm going to drop down actually. Well, I'm going to stay with this for now, but I'll drop down to a smaller nail in a minute. If you can get a little bit of support on the other side of that groove, the other corner, that does help. But you can't always do that, it just depends on the point. probably edit most of this nonsensical babbling out of the video. Nail was starting to bend for a little bit there. Yeah, so then the nail is bending a little bit. This one here is also not a twisted nail. It's just not as strong. Even though it's only up a little bit, it shouldn't be bending like that. But this is tough stone too. I mean, when I made these, I was working a lot of obsidian, which is not a hard stone. Alright, once I start to slip a little like that, it feels like it's slipping off the stone, I'm going to go over to the other side, because what I don't want is I don't want to get a nice beautiful notch here and then get some crappy half notch over here. I'd rather have two mediocre notches than one good one and one bad one. And this ear is pretty thin. That stands a good chance of busting off. So I'm going to go over to this side here and just work on this notch. Going back up to the bigger flaker. Going to dig right into that corner. I'm going to start on this side though because it's angled down, so it has more likelihood of popping off. This is fun. I haven't notched a point in a little while. It's hard to nap here in the winter. This side's notching a little bit easier than the other side, to be honest. Did I just break the ear off? Yeah, I did. I could feel it. That's alright. I'm not too worried about that, because if I'd have broken it off, if I didn't break it off now, it would just break off the first time I shot it. And if I spent all that time hafting the arrow, see how that ear on this side blew off a little bit. This one, I should probably trim this one too. I'll do that right now. Trim it down a little bit. It's just like your edges. If it's weak and doesn't want to be there, it should be gone. So this ear over here came out pretty good. I'm going to start working on this one again, thicken that one up. I'm going to probably start going back and forth, sort of like a zigzag, just so that I can, it helps to make sure that both ears are symmetrical as far as being dug in or chipped in the same amount. I know this video is probably a pretty weak video, I apologize, but I felt like doing some napping, thought I'd put it on camera. Maybe somebody out there will like it. Alright, so I'm going back to the smaller one. Smaller nail. Just because I don't want to blow out the ears even more. That big nail, that big copper nail is so thick that if I keep pushing, it's going to push force this way and pop that off. So. And what I could do is I could start going a little bit more towards the point with my notch, depending upon what you want it to look like. I'm personally right now just looking for something that I can haft to my arrow pretty well. So that's what I'm doing. This one's already starting to slip, so we might be stalled. A little bit of crushing, but I think I can still flake this forward. There we go. It's always nice when you get if you get a stall, and then you can pop off a nice clean flake. It resets your whole process. Fixes that stall. But you have to make sure you still move forward with that. Okay, so I think I'm happy with this. I mean, this isn't. It could be better. But there we go. This is what we're left with. That will haft onto an arrow nicely. It's a little bit on the wide side, but again, like I said, this is for shooting into stumps, not animals. If this was a hunting point, it'd be much thinner than this. You can see it still has that quartz vein on this side. Doesn't quite go all the way through, but that's a beautiful point. I'm happy with it. All I need to do now is sharpen it. And actually, it might be sharp enough just for stump shooting already. Probably don't have to sharpen it. But I like to anyway, just to get into a habit, so if I ever find myself in a situation where I'm, making one of these in order to hunt with, if I need to, even though it's against the law, if it's a survival situation, I'll do it. I want to make sure that I keep those skills, somewhat fresh. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you stuck with me to the end, then thank you so much. And if you have any questions, any comments, or anything you'd like to see in the future, let me know. And when I get ready to put this onto an arrow point, onto an arrow, I'll try and get that on film as well. So this is Paleo Greenbird, hoping you're having an awesome day, and I'm signing out.